Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's October 8th, 2017. Today I'm going to be reading from Keep It Simple, Daily Meditations for 12-Step Beginnings and Renewal. And you can follow along if you have this book and if you have your fingernails painted. Or I'm going to be reading it, reflecting on it, and then reading it again. And I would love to hear about your experience if you want to leave me a comment. I get so much out of reading your guys. And if you're sober, go ahead and drop your sobriety date too. I'd love to know who else is out there pursuing sobriety. If you're not sober and that's not interesting to you, that's totally fine. I think everybody can still get something out of these readings. December 11th. Today's the 11th, right? Okay. December 11th. When patterns are broken, new worlds emerge. 𝒀𝒐𝒖𝒃𝒔𝒄𝒓𝒊𝒃𝒆. Recovery has happened to us. We stopped drinking or using other drugs, and like magic, a new world appeared. Being sober sure shakes up a person's life. It's good to shake up our world every now and then. This way, we see there's not just one world, but many. We grow up each time we step into a new world and learn new things. Of course, the addict's world was new and exciting to us at one time, but we got trapped and couldn't find our way out. Our higher power had to free us. We need to try new worlds, but we always need to take our higher power with us into worlds where there's honesty, love, and trust. Prayer for the day. Higher power, lead me to new worlds where I'll learn more about living fully. Action for the day. I'll list 3 ways I can step into a new world today. For example, I could read something new, go to a museum, or eat a new food. All right, I love this one. I'm going to start by saying something incredibly cringe. As a Sagittarius, I love the concept and the idea of doing new things and trying new things and experiencing new things. Like there's just like this tone to adventure that I feel like a lot of people out of self-preservation and fear have opted out of, when literally that's just all we are meant to do is actually just adventure in this place. And there are a lot of ways to adventure. We can actually like externally adventure and like travel the world and do all this. We can internally adventure where we are exploring ourselves and our past and where we anticipate in our dreams being in the future, you know? And we can also adventure in our communities and see how certain social dynamics are playing out and who plays into what and how relationships flourish or die. And, you know, all of these things are different ways to have adventures. And these are all different ways that we can also explore new worlds, right? Like sometimes it is literally physically exploring a new world as far as, you know, being opened up to an entirely new culture. And other times it really is just an internal world where it's like, I used to wake up and drink every single day and hate myself. Today I'm going to try not drinking and maybe liking myself. These are entirely different worlds. And when you in whichever way you choose to operate in the world is going to further expand the experience that you're having here as a human. And I feel like there's such like it's such an underrated way to like find exhilaration. When I got sober, well, let me go way back. Growing up, I always felt pretty stifled. I felt pretty like limited. I felt really like sheltered in a lot of ways. And so when I started to get a little bit of independence and I got a car and I started to be able to make more of my own decisions, I kind of lashed out against that. Of course, I started hanging out with the bad kids. I loved the like seediness of like punk clubs and like I liked hanging out with drug dealers. Like then I started participating in the drinking and doing coke and all this other stuff. So it's like that kind of actually opened me up to this new world that I hadn't been exposed to in my very safe and secure middle class little family, right? And being able to explore that, I got exposed to a lot of things for better or worse. Some things that still stick with me. I'm like, okay, now I know that this means this, and like maybe talk to people in this way. And like, you know, you learn a lot depending on the people who you're around, for better or worse. And being able to be exposed to that. And so it was fun, it was exciting, it was different than the norm and how I had grown up until I couldn't get out of that world, right? And then I just kind of created my own world, my own vortex, my own volcano, my own tornado of that world. And everybody who knew me got swept up into my world and my chaos and my whatever, you know? And it was not actually where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be an alcoholic, it turned out. I didn't even know that that's what I was becoming because my world had become so small and so narrow, and it had become all that I had now known until there came a place where I was like, I actually do want more than this. And then it was this stepping out of the world, and it is terrifying. I was terrified. I don't know. I don't know if anybody has, if you've had just actually, I have heard of people who just have like these magical, you know, I don't know, just recovery stories of like they stepped out into sobriety and their life was instantly better. And it does get better to a point because you've stopped the the bleeding at the wound, right? Of like constantly being a drug addict or an alcoholic. So you're not actively participating in like the bad things going on in your life. But now there's, for me, I had a bunch of wreckage that I had to clean up. And that was really uncomfortable. And having to clean it up sober was existing in this whole new world that was really difficult for me to navigate because I'd never been there before. I might as well have been in an entirely new country because learning how to operate sober was just foreign to me. I didn't know how to manage my feelings. I didn't know how to express my feelings or my needs. I didn't know how to relate to other people in genuine and authentic and compassionate ways. I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't know how to stand up for others. I didn't know how to be helpful in a genuine way. And I had to learn, and I got to learn by being in rooms with people who were modeling this behavior to me and who cared enough about me to ask and to push me into areas that were uncomfortable for me, and really exist in these new worlds. And, then that world got comfortable. Okay, so then what is the next challenge? Okay, now I'm going to try doing this. Now, like my creative life has been a new world for me. Trying to create communities around my interests has been a new world for me. Now I'm more into exploring my faith even more and wondering how I can create communities around that. Like I'm trying to always push for some level of discomfort in my life. I feel like during periods where there's great turmoil, like a lot of grief, or there's been like a lot of tragedy, I think we definitely need to stop. Maybe that's already a growing process, an area of discomfort, and I don't push for goals when I'm in that. I just try to hang out by myself, which maybe is also not the best thing. But, all of this to say that this exploration of, I feel like a lot of addicts and alcoholics can be adrenaline junkies. We like that high of like, that chase, that pursuit, whatever. And it's like you can literally get that same kick just by just trying to do things sober because it is exhilarating in the most anxiety-ridden way. It is so nerve-wracking for me anyway. It was to just try to do anything sober. And I mean anything sober. I mean, going to the grocery store sober, running errands sober, driving sober, going to work sober, engaging in relationships sober, like any of that sober was an entirely a new arena for me that it was incredibly uncomfortable. And as I went on and grew in my sobriety, it got easier and better and cooler as I went along. And now it has opened up an entirely different new world for me that I hadn't anticipated even 10 years ago, right? And there's something about, even though I think that that's kind of the landscape that they're talking about here is like sobriety opens up all these new worlds to us. It's entirely true. There's just things that I wouldn't be exposed to now if I were still in my alcoholism, but not just like physically on alcohol, but actually that mindset that I carried with me of just like everything is limited, everything is small, this is all that I know, everything is scary out there. Like if I had continued to maintain that mindset, and I can in certain occasions, I think that's normal. Then I wouldn't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear all of the worlds around me, right? And there is something about this stepping into worlds where there's honesty, love, and trust. This is very important to me. Anyone in my world knows that if there is a level of dishonesty or distrust or mistrust, or if there's like hatred around or any kind of contempt or resentment, like I cannot actually exist in that. I worked really hard to get out of worlds where there was dishonesty or mistrust and any hatred, including self-hatred. This is why hanging out with people who are super duper self-deprecating and really down on themselves, I kind of have to step away from if they're not willing to want to view themselves in a different light, because that is contagious. All of these things like lying, hatred, dishonesty, they're contagious. If you're around people enough who engage in those behaviors and those beliefs enough, you will also, because now your norm of what is acceptable is decreasing. It's deteriorating. I surround myself with people who say the hard and awkward and inelegant things in the name of honesty and love and trust. It takes a level of trust to be honest with people because you have to trust that they can accept your honesty and be okay. It's all the undercurrents of that. We do that out of love. When I am honest with somebody, I had a pretty difficult conversation with a couple of friends last night just about some topics that they were talking about. And I was like, actually, I don't feel comfortable like in conversations like that. They kind of misunderstood me and thought that I was being judgmental of them. And I was like, no, actually, I'm telling you that I'm struggling with this thing. I definitely see how it sounded judgmental and I should have worked a little bit harder to like express that. But this is what I'm going through. And so then I would tell them and they're like, "Oh, okay, we got you. That's fine. I love you." And I was like, "I love you." And it takes sometimes that initial hurting of feelings or like, but it also takes because there's so much love and trust with me and my friends that we're like, this, I know that she wouldn't purposely say this to hurt me. What else could she possibly be saying here? And if she is saying this to hurt me, let me find out what is actually going on because this is, and so it requires that love, honesty, and trust. And my relationships that I engage in, they have to have this. If there's a level of suspicion or I'm just kind of like vague or like I'm just over that, I cannot do that in my life on a day-to-day basis. Again, primarily because once I start to engage in that behavior, my sobriety is on the line. When I begin to feel like secrecy is okay, or I begin to feel like either being suspicious or arousing suspicion is okay, that's an issue. If I'm around people who I can't trust, I know I will act out in fear and it will inevitably cause resentments that I will need to make amends for later. So all of this to say, and I can't make people act in a certain way either, though. So it's mostly just my responsibility to remove myself from certain situations, right? So I love this though. And I mean, I can go into this even further. And like, I think every single person is a new world. Like, we can really, everybody has their history, their triumphs, their challenges, it's just, it really, if we really had the eyes to see the different landscapes available to us, we would be on an adventure every single day and life would never be boring and we would appreciate how exhilarating life is on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis. And we wouldn't actually have to go to drugs or alcohol for any sense of adventure or like, to, or because we're bored. Like it just can't, it isn't real life that. So anyway, going back to this, tell me what your experience on this is, what new worlds you've been able to have opened up to you in sobriety, and are you walking confidently into them? Oh, that was the other thing about bringing God with us. Oh my God. The number of times I'll walk into a new situation where I'm like, this is so awkward. I feel so dumb, or this is so scary. And I would just be like, God be with me, God be with me, God be with me. And like, God is clearly already there. God has already been there and back. There is no, I've survived what I've had to survive and I'm more, whatever, according to God's, plan. And so I just have to go into those situations. And I know that regardless of how any situation turns out, I'm going to be okay. It just is. And I know that because God is with me. And I am so grateful for that connection to God that I have and that you can have too, by the way. Everyone has this connection to God if they are willing to seek it, because it really does give me the courage sometimes to do things that I wouldn't normally do or that I wouldn't normally feel capable of doing. And I really feel like that's sometimes even especially having those hard conversations that are just fraught with honesty and awkwardness. Like these are the conversations that I so much need God for. And sometimes it's the stepping away from old worlds that I need courage for. And that's also where God is very helpful. All right, it's necessary. God is very necessary, actually. Okay, again, reading this, December 11th. When patterns are broken, new worlds emerge. 𝒂𝒃𝒔𝒄𝒓𝒊𝒃𝒆. Recovery has happened to us. We stopped drinking or using other drugs, and like magic, a new world appeared. Being sober sure shakes up a person's life. It's good to shake up our world every now and then. This way, we see there's not just one world, but many. We grow each time we step into a new world and learn new things. Of course, the addict's world was new and exciting to us at one time, but we got trapped and couldn't find our way out. Our higher power had to free us. We need to try new worlds, but we always need to take our higher power with us into worlds where there's honesty, love, and trust. And I would even argue that without honesty and trust, there cannot be love, right? Prayer for the day. Higher power, lead me to new worlds where I'll learn more about living fully. Action for the day. I'll list 3 ways I can step into a new world today. For example, I could read something new, go to a museum, or eat a new food. So tell me 3 ways that you're going to step into a new world today. All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Okay, bye.